Capcom has proven time and time again that they have the largest cojones in the gaming industry. Now, why do I say that? Because Capcom is not afraid to do something new with the Resident Evil series every once in a while. For example, Resident Evil 6, even though we know how that turned out, Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil Village. So if y'all didn't know, in the past week, Dust Golem, not even one of the most reliable leaker in gaming, has came out and said Capcom is going to make RE9 an open world game. Now, I see a lot of people getting scared about this. They're really doubting Capcom. And me personally, it sounds funny just hearing Resident Evil and open world going together. They've kind of hinted at going this route. Now, if you look at something like Resident Evil Village, where the game is semi-open world, a lot of room, a lot of exploration, and it worked perfectly in my opinion. To me, I just feel like they should have implemented a little bit more horror instead of, one big horror section and then going straight back to action. I feel like it was kind of unbalanced, and then it became like fucking Transformers fighting Heisenberg or whatever. But they definitely proved in that game that they can nail the semi-open world. Now, when I think of an open world horror game, I think of something like Evil Within 2. Now, I've never played Evil Within 2. In fact, I've watched very little gameplay. I've seen the trailer, and I think I watched somebody play like one or two episodes worth of gameplay of it back in the day. So I don't really remember how Evil Within 2 works, but I remember it was getting praised about how its open world worked. So if Capcom needed to go off any type of blueprint for a horror game, they could easily go off Evil Within 2. Now, there was leaks 2 years ago about Resident Evil 9, a whole 2 years ago. And now it wasn't by Dust Golem. And before I even get into the leaks that happened 2 years ago, because everything ties in so nicely, I kind of believe those leaks now. If you do not know who Dust Golem is, he has gotten every game he's leaked correct, 1000% correct. And I was one of those people like, who the fuck is this guy named Dust Golem? Who is he? What really opened my eyes to his credibility with leaking information was 2 years before Village was ever even revealed. He came out and he was the one that said the next RE game is gonna have witches, werewolves, and vampires. And everybody's sitting there like, what? Like, this shit is fake as hell. Because definitely all them years ago, when you hear that, you're like, that's not Resident Evil, and we were all wrong. And Capcom pulled it off perfectly, in my opinion. So I'm not doubting Dusk on this at all. He is 1000% right. If he told me my girl was gonna go cheat on me the next day, I would absolutely believe it. But let's read this real quick. I want to read the second part. So he says, Dragon Dogma 2 expanded the RE engine functionality for open world games. The two other games building on this tech is Monster Hunter Wilds and Resident Evil 9, which makes sense because Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out early next year. I think in like January, so I could be wrong. But it would make sense because Dragon Dogma 2 is running on the RE engine, and Dragon Dogma 2 is just a phenomenal game in itself. But it works perfectly with the engine, in my opinion. The only thing people are really critiquing is the frame rate, which is because it's uncapped at 30 frames per second. I don't think that would be a problem with RE9 because RE9 wouldn't have a whole lot of stuff going on screen at once like Dragon Dogma 2. I mean, Dragon Dogma 2, you have, your pawns, you have yourself, you have a bunch of NPCs around, and then you have like fucking ogres and dragons and a whole bunch of shit going on. So that's why the frame rate is uncapped. I don't think it would be the same thing with an RE9 open world game. But the fact that he brought up Dragon Dogma 2, some people are thinking it's going to be this monstrous open world game. And I don't think that's the case. There is no way in hell Resident Evil can have a monstrous open world. I just don't see how that would ever work. Again, I brought up Evil Within 2. If anything, open world wise, it would be like Evil Within 2. So my main thing about RE9 being open world is, what kind of game is RE9 going to be? Is Capcom going to make this an open world action game, or is it going to be an open world horror game? In my opinion, I think Capcom has to go the horror route. To me, they can't go the Arnold Palmer route when it comes to Resident Evil 9. They can't do half T and half lemonade. It can't be half horror and half action. They need to double down on the horror. In my opinion, I don't want another action Resident Evil game, at least right now. Original new concept to Resident Evil. The remake's cool. But original Resident Evil content, I don't want another Resident Evil action game. The reason being is because Resident Evil 7 was so damn good in my opinion. I love Resident Evil 7, and it was a straight horror game, and it was fantastic. They nailed the horror to a T. But then they went on to something like RE8, and they made the game majority action with just a sprinkle of horror, with one horror section. The only reason why they took that route is because you had some pansy ass people saying Resident Evil was too scary, so they retracted from the horror and put more action to it. Capcom, if y'all listen to me, love y'all to death. Fuck those people. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna keep it real. Just because they're too scared doesn't mean y'all have to get away from what y'all do best, and that is horror.
Boy, just be yourself. If people don't like it if you're being yourself, fuck them.
If they're too scared to play anything, let them go play fucking Animal Party or whatever the hell, Animal Crossing or Kirby or something. Let them go play Nintendo games or something. Do not let that affect how y'all do RE9. Do not let that affect how y'all do horror games. Because your core fan base, us, we love the horror. We love it to death. And I don't care. I don't want no casuals from the outside or people that just really don't mess with Resident Evil like that, but they're trying to get into it, dictating whether a game is too scary or not. I don't want to hear that. I really don't. If RE9 is a horror, 100% horror game, I'm telling you, Capcom is going to be at their best. Can you imagine an open world where you're like in a town or something? You have to go into these stores or whatever, and you're just hearing footsteps, or you're just scared at every turn. You don't know, you don't want to run into any store because you don't know what you're going to run into. And another thing I want to see in RE9, I want to see unscripted events. They really need to pay attention to what they did in Dragon Dogma 2, because Dragon Dogma 2, if you're playing it, you know how unscripted the game is. Nothing is ever scripted. You can literally be walking over a bridge, just chilling, and the next thing you know, a fucking ogre comes out or a dragon swoops in and takes everybody out. Like, you don't know what is coming next. You don't have any time to prepare. You just got to be on your toes. That's how I want RE9 to be. So now I want to touch on the leaks that came out 2 years ago. This was published on August 5th, 2022. If you've been watching like other Resident Evil content creators, they pretty much touched on this. I'm not gonna read the whole article, whatever. I'm kind of just gonna dumb it down for the most part, so just bear with me. So what I loved about these leaks, and I hope they're true, it makes sense now, even though these weren't leaked by Dust Gollum, so I take them with a grain of salt. This makes everything sound like it's gonna be like legit now. Okay, so Resident Evil 9 is not going to be zombies. I think Resident Evil is far and beyond past zombies, okay? Zombies are such a dead type of game. Zombies are just like old news. I don't think it just works anymore, in my opinion, okay? So, according to these leaks, the Resident Evil 9 game is going to be called Resident Evil Apocalypse. Basically, Resident Evil 9 is going to stay in that, you know, that folklore realm with the, you know, the mythical creatures and stuff like that. So, one of the mythical creatures are Wendigos. Now, if you played Until Dawn, you should know what a Wendigo is. They're like antlered creatures, very disgusting looking, crazy looking creatures, very evil. And then another creature that the leak said the game was going to have is a Goatman, which is half man, half beast. We went from vampires, wolves, and stuff like that into Wendigos and Goatmen. So it's still mythological shit going on in the Resident Evil world, according to these leaks. Now, this was the best part of this leak, in my opinion. There are skinwalkers in the game. A skinwalker is a creature that can shapeshift into humans. And in this case, according to the leaks, the skinwalkers can shapeshift into human NPCs that you've come across throughout the game. And you know, of course, off screen, they were killed by the creatures. So when you're running into these quote-unquote NPCs, you don't know if it's skinwalkers or just regular NPCs. You have to pay attention to mannerisms and everything like that. And the AI is supposed to be very intelligent. That is horror at its finest. And just hearing that, I can see Capcom just nailing something like that. You have to stay on your toes at all time. You don't know who to trust. Capcom, this is Capcom's bread and butter. And another thing about this leak, the setting is supposed to be in like a Silent Hill-esque town. So big town, maybe some fog or whatever. Of course, there's woods, forests, whatever. According to the leaks, you're going to be hearing sounds. You might hear branches crunching, stuff getting bumped into, and when you turn around, nothing might be there. And sometimes something will be there. So that ties perfectly into what Dust Golem is saying about the open world, in my opinion. The key is to make the open world game feel like Resident Evil. That's the only thing they're gonna have to worry about, and I'm not doubting them when it comes to this, because Capcom doesn't miss, unless you're talking about Resident Evil 6, because they were way off the mark, okay? But other than that, I really hope this leak especially is real. This sounds like what everybody has been asking for years, just a nice full throttle horror game. I don't care if people are too scared to play. If you don't want to play, go pick up Mario. I don't care. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Capcom has to get back to the horror essence when it comes to Resident Evil. I think we are overdue for one. Resident Evil 7 was years ago. What was that, 2017, I believe? So Capcom, it's time. I already know they're going to knock it out the ballpark. I have high expectations for Capcom, and they've been working on Resident Evil 9 for quite some time, according to rumors. So I think they're gonna get this down pat, and I'm pretty sure after this is, you know, announced, which I think it'll come out next year, early next year, I think we'll get Resident Evil 5 right after that, because Capcom always has content for its fan base. Always, don't matter what game series it is, Capcom always releases games every year. But I will salute Capcom for having large stones. I am ready. I'm hoping a trailer is coming out this summer. If the game is really coming out next year, like I'm predicting, the way Capcom operates, we'll have a trailer in maybe 2 to 3 months. There's somewhere during the summertime. So I'm expecting it, man. I'm expecting it. But y'all let me know what y'all think. An open world Resident Evil is going to be fun, or are they just trying to do too much? Y'all just let me know in the comment section below. And I got some more videos to make, so I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.